the problem is, to help push the Biden administration's war on so-called junk fees using weapons of junk economics, the CFPB has actually penalized Americans who pay their credit cards on time and are trying to build credit for a better financial future. The late fee rule, which cuts the safe harbor for late fees from $30 to $8, will result in on-time borrowers subsidizing those who do not pay on time. Only in Joe Biden's world is that fair, to punish people who do the right thing in order to subsidize people who pay late. It will result in increased costs of and decreased access to credit products, and a negative shift in consumer behavior where individuals are actually incentivized to take on additional debt. That is not helpful to consumers.
Even 4 out of 5 Republicans support the CFPB and its work. Why is that? Because nearly all Republicans, except the ones sitting in this room, apparently are like the rest of us and don't like to be ripped off or charged junk fees. And I want a strong federal watchdog who has our back. This rule will save consumers more than $10 billion annually, or $220 every year, for more than 45 million people typically charged these fees. Additionally, I would remind my colleagues that since this is a CRA resolution, it not only will take $10 billion of annual savings out of the pockets of consumers, but it will also prevent the CFPB from taking similar action to protect consumers without a further act of Congress. And honestly, that seems to be the main objective of committee Republicans.
So today I ask my colleagues, do we want subprime borrowers to be disadvantaged? Do we want credit accessibility to be more expensive or unattainable for Americans? Do we want to increase debt burdens on everyday Americans? The answer to all of these questions should be no. To ensure that these bad outcomes don't occur, though, we must pass this resolution to nullify the CFPB's credit card late fee rule. We should not want our consumer protection agencies to encourage bad financial behavior. We should not want our consumer protection agencies to discourage Americans from paying on time, to build up their credit, to achieve financial independence. We should not want our consumer protection agencies to take actions that limit the financial options available to the American people or make access to credit cards more difficult or increase the cost to responsible credit card borrowers. But that is exactly what's happening here. And for the 50% of Americans who live paycheck to paycheck, who might carry a credit card balance, who are subprime borrowers, but pay on time, every month they get that bill. Responsible owners of credit cards. This rule punishes them.
I strongly oppose this anti-consumer resolution, Res 122. It would rescind a final rule issued by the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau to limit junk fees. Specifically, the rule would generally limit credit card companies' late fees to $8. Today, credit card companies charge between $32 and $40. The rule only applies to the largest credit card issuers that have more than 1 million accounts, and it permits them to charge a higher fee only if they demonstrate it is reasonable and proportional to the delayed payment. This is part of the CFPB's work to combat junk fees alongside other agencies and the Biden administration. While mega banks and congressional Republicans may not like it, the American people support the CFPB and their junk fee initiative. Let's put this initiative into perspective. While House Democrats have held hearings after hearings to attack the Basel III endgame proposal that would strengthen the safety and soundness of our banking system, that rulemaking received only about 400 comments. On junk fees, the CFPB has received 200 times the amount of comments from the public, specifically receiving more than 80,000 comments. Let me give you one example. A consumer in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania wrote, quote, "Credit card fees must be limited now. I have personally been subject to outrageous late fees when I was even a couple of hours late to pay my fees simply because I remembered I needed to pay but forgot when the cutoff time for payments was. For some cards, it's 6 p.m., for some, it's 8, for some, it's midnight. How are we supposed to remember? I hate to think of someone with 2 jobs and children and many responsibilities being charged $30 just because the credit card payment time or date slipped their mind.
I want to engage in a rhetorical question that I'll be directing to my friend, the ranking member, about the $10 billion. Because she's right that when you lower late fees for people who pay late, they're not going to pay as much late fees. And she cites a statistic of $10 billion. So where does that $10 billion come from? That's the question. That's the question for the ranking member. I'll tell you where it's going to come from. It's going to come from consumers who pay on time. That $10 billion is coming out of their pocket because they're going to lose access to credit cards and they're going to pay a higher interest rate. Banks aren't going to pay that. That $10 billion is, yes, it's coming off those folks who pay late, but the people who pay on time, and 50% of subprime credit card borrowers are going to pay more. Instead of referring to these as junk fees, I think we need to recognize what these fees actually are. They are a necessary cost of providing financial products and services. And by the way, the vast majority of Americans agree that they're legitimate. They don't think they're junk. They see this as for what it is. It's junk economics.
I think it is important for me to say something. You've done a great job for those poor credit card companies. So let me do something for the people. My something for the people is this. I agree, first of all, with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau that would like to reduce fees to about $8. That seems to me more than fair. But what I want to do is have a colloquy with you about how you assume that if, in fact, they cannot get this exorbitant amounts of fees from people who pay late, that somehow people who pay on time are going to have their interest rates or whatever increase. How do you make that argument?
Because the CFPB itself, Madam Ranking Member, said that.
No.
I'm not saying that. Rohit Chopra's staff says that. They acknowledge it. They admit it.
Time.
And for an independent agency to say, oh, well, we're independent, but are following this junk fee agenda from the White House, it's obviously a political agenda that the CFPB doesn't even agree with.
Reclaiming my time. You don't believe anything else that Chopra has to say, and all of a sudden you quoting him without having any facts. What you are claiming, I don't care where you heard it, if you heard it from them, and I would be absolutely surprised that you are believing that's what you heard.
Will the gentlelady yield to answer that question?
Yield, certainly.
So thank you for yielding. I would direct the gentlelady's attention to the rulemaking itself. It's in the Federal Register. The Bureau, and I'm quoting the Federal Register, okay? I'm quoting the CFPB. These are not my words. The CFPB's own data indicates that, quote, that 74% of all Americans with credit cards could experience, quote, higher maintenance fees, lower rewards, or higher interest on interest-paying accounts. And what they're referring to are people who pay on time.
All right, reclaiming my time. What you're saying is that the banks can decide that they're going to make good customers pay more for something like maintenance, whatever that is, and some other kinds of things that they're now saying, because I don't get $33 or $32 from someone that's paying late, that all of a sudden everything else is going to increase and I'm going to charge those good paying. That just doesn't make good sense.
Well, the gentlelady yield.
I don't care where you heard it, who said it, it doesn't make good sense. The fact of the matter is that this side of the aisle have decided that they're going to be on the side of the rip-off credit card companies and those who are stealing and taking money from the most vulnerable people in our society.
well, the gentlelady
No,
yield.
I do not at this point. I got to tell you something. I do not support. As a matter of fact, the last I heard, the banks and the credit card companies were doing extraordinarily well. So if they arbitrarily decide that they're going to raise the amount of money that good customers are paying, they have a choice. They don't have to do that. And so I don't support that. I support the idea that these rates that are being charged for late payments is much too high, much too costly for the average citizen. And I would dare you on any day of the week to prove that you are right, that the people say that's right. We should be charged more. We should charge to be $30-something for these late charges. I believe that the people, whether they're Republican or Democrat or whatever, they're on our side. They're tired of getting ripped off. They're tired of getting overcharged. They're tired of seeing the banks of America continue to grow and have huge profits, pay less taxes, and still charge us all of this money for late fees. And so with that, I yield back to you.
I want to thank all my friends on the other side of the aisle for illustrating the difference between the Democratic and Republican parties. The acting chair says that this is a highly competitive market, that people change from one bank to the other, and he may be true. So this rule only applies to institutions over, I believe, $100 billion. I believe there's a cutoff. I forget exactly where that cutoff is. So what this means is that those institutions will be free to keep their existing system, and they will attract all those pay-on-time wonderful customers, and they'll still get the great deal. And those who occasionally pay late can stay where they are and get the lower late fee. If it is correct that this is a competitive market, then some will be in one category, some will be in the other, and consumers can choose. Second, the gentleman from Kentucky says they should be able to charge their costs. I agree. That's why $8 late fee covers the cost. But it's not just $8. It's interest at a very high interest rate from the moment you pay late until you finally pay. Now, today's computerized systems, I wonder if there's even an $8 cost. This is not a situation where it's the 1970s and three bank officials need to get together and say, what do we do with Mr. Jones's credit card? He's over, should we cut his? No, this is all done by computer instantaneously at no cost. The report cited by the gentleman from Kentucky says, well, this could conceivably, I could grow hair. It could happen. But it's highly unlikely for the very reason that this is a competitive market. I cannot believe that this is going to come out of the hides of those highly prized credit card customers that pay on time and that are good credit risks. Those folks will still be able to find a bank that will give them a good rate. And to think that, but if indeed it is true that cutting these late fees is harmful to those good consumers, then why does the gentleman from Kentucky wax poetically in favor of those banks that waive late fees? Presumably, waiving a late fee is a stab in the heart of every pay-on-time customer the bank has. No, banks often waive late fees, and I've never seen that condemned by any member of this committee. When a bank waives a late fee, it is not stabbing its other customers. When you pay late, $8 charge, interest rate running at around 30%, that is plenty. And for us to say that banks should be free to charge 4 times their actual cost, $32 or more, on on the theory that they're then going to provide a better deal for their other customers? I don't think so. Keep in mind, the banking system is already taking 3% or more from the merchant before they even make a penny off their customer. Do we really need to say that 3% on what is now increasingly every transaction? It's been a long time since I've used cash for anything other than our own cloakroom. So they're making the 3% on the front end. They're getting the late fees that more than cover their actual costs. And they're getting 25 to 30% interest every day that money's outstanding per annum interest. I can't imagine that the banks need more. But if they do, well, that illustrates the difference between our two parties.
Is there further debate? Okay. There being no further debate, too bad nobody can yield to me. The question now occurs on ordering HJ Resolution 122 reported to the House with favorable recommendation. Those in favor shall signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed shall signify by saying nay.
Nay, no.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes certainly have it. Yeah.
Recorded.
Oh. Okay. The gentlelady, for what purpose does the gentlewoman from California seek recognition?
I request to record.
A recorded vote is requested. All those in favor of a recorded vote, raise your hand. A sufficient number having raised their hand, a recorded vote is ordered pursuant to subsection C5 of Rule 3 of the committee rules. The vote on this question is postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek
The
recognition?
exact opposite of what the committee did just a second ago. I ask unanimous consent that I be allowed to rescind my request for a recorded vote on H.R. 4206, the Bank Safety Act.
Without objection, the request for a recorded vote is withdrawn, and the ayes have it. The bill H.R. 4206, as amended, is ordered favorably reported. A motion to reconsider is laid on the table.